Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. So we're discussing the landmark, courageous, bold, intelligent German ban on naked credit default swaps and the naked shorting of finance stocks. Now, the naked shorting, something similar, is in effect in the United States. It's in effect some other places. It was not in effect under crazy, feckless Chris Cox, the Republican placeholder who was running the Securities and Exchange Commission back in 2008. This was one of the things that contributed to the panic of 2008, that you didn't have that. But in the case of the Germans, the big thing is the ban on naked credit default swaps. Now, the wretched performance of Sarkozy promotes him to a Euro wimp. And if he wants to get rid of the mantle of the Euro wimp and stooge of the Anglo-Saxon conspiracy, as they say, then he better get busy and do something to strike at credit default swaps. While you're doing it, you better ban all credit default swaps, all of them, because all of them represent insurance policies which are written by companies or individuals even that do not qualify as insurance companies. And while you're doing it, as even Lloyd Blankfein had talked about in his hearings there when he was on the hot seat, you better ban synthetic collateralized debt obligations, the synthetic CDO or CDO squared. So as you know, my website, this program, we've been demanding the banning of credit default swaps for quite a while. I've talked about this repeatedly on Russia Today. You can go back and look at those interventions on my website. So I welcome this. This is a step in the right direction. Portugal came out and said that they had such a ban. I think this refers to the naked shorts of the financial stocks, and that they would keep them. The French have not. There's a European finance ministers meeting today, Friday, which I do not yet have a good line on. We'll have to see what happens with this. The interesting thing, in order to see whether some of these other Europeans would come in and join them, I'm urging Iceland in particular, countries that are under heavy attack like Iceland and Latvia and a couple of others, join the German ban. These are countries that are not yet necessarily in the euro or not in the euro. They don't want to be in the euro. There's no reason to join the euro now, but there's every reason to impose a ban on credit default swaps. Let's drive the money changers out. Let's drive out the credit default swaps mongers worldwide. These are the most toxic derivatives, or among the most toxic derivatives. And remember, the German ban is working. It's working. It has saved the euro this past week. Ever since the Germans instituted the ban on naked credit default swaps, the euro has been going up, and the entire panic scenario for the euro has essentially been stymied. There had been, and I think this has to do with the German timing, it's clear that there was some organized effort by the hedge funds and others, zombie banks, because remember, the people who have these naked credit default swaps, who are they? It's Citibank, it's J.P. Morgan, it's Bank of America, it's Goldman Sachs, it's our dear friends, the zombies and hyenas of Wall Street. So they're the ones who were going with this stuff. Now, the Germans came out with it as a surprise on Tuesday afternoon. What was the timing of this? Well, it looks like there was an organized attempt to organize a panic flight out of the euro, the massive dumping of the euro. You know, we've gone through these scenarios concerning the dollar repeatedly, right? You know, the one where the MBA, the young functionary of the Malaysian central bank, say, wakes up one morning and decides that Malaysia is a little bit heavy on dollars, and he decides to lighten up a little bit, so he decides to sell $100 million or $200 million, and a rumor starts, and a panic starts, and a snowball effect and a cascade effect occurs, and as the trading goes around the world, right, it goes across Asia, and then it goes across Eurasia and into the Middle East and Europe and so on, and everybody's dumping dollars. By then the day ends in New York, there's a huge dollar neck, and the dollar has lost 10 or 20% value. You know these scenarios. We've talked about them in relation to the dollar. It would seem to me that what was intended this past week was to unleash a scenario like that against the euro, a panic flight out of the euro, a panic run against the euro. And here we have, as part of the deployment, which was stymied, an article here in the Washington Post, Thursday, May 20th. So this was something that was still put into the newspaper on Wednesday, May 19th, and the German ban had gone into effect on Tuesday, May 18th. So here's the article. Market tumult, rising tide threatens the euro. Longer-term investors and firms, not just hedge funds, shun the currency. And here we read, some of the world's largest money managers and central banks have become increasingly skeptical of the euro, present threat to the common currency's prospects. So far during the euro month-long descent, attention has been focused on hedge fund selling of European assets, but central banks and large managers have a much larger influence on foreign exchange markets. And even if they don't dump euro assets, a mere pause in their buying could weigh heavily on that currency. So the idea is that they're essentially saying South Korea means that they find the euro less attractive, and above all, China, right? So they're basically saying China had been diversifying. Will they keep doing that, and so forth? But I think lurking behind the verbiage of this article, as you hear, is some kind of a cabal of central bankers, maybe, and zombie bankers for sure, and hedge fund high in any case, to organize a panic run on the euro. So and they would use credit default swaps as a part of it against these obvious bonds, including the German bond, the Bund. So it seems to me that the Germans were acting to preempt. They could see the attack gathering, and they decided to knock it off balance with these very interesting measures. Now, there was a lot of screaming and whining, not just on the principled issue, right? Is it legitimate for a national government to defend itself against hedge fund hyenas and zombie bankers? Some say no. Oh, no, globalization rules the world. But then there's also the process argument, and this comes from Barroso, the Portuguese neo-fascist who runs the European Commission. The European Commission line was, in effect, to say, we don't like the idea that the Germans have decided to go it alone. We need a common European response, says Barroso and company, just coming back from one of his Bilderberger meetings, no doubt. And also Van Rompuy, the president of Europe, another Bilderberger habitué. So these two Bilderbergers get together and say, well, we don't like the Germans for doing this all by themselves. We need a common European response. And then they said, we'll have our proposal ready in October. In October, that's 6 months away. And by the time it gets to be October, you will have lost your shirts. You'll be dressed in a barrel and living under a bridge, dear Europeans. So don't wait for the ponderous, elephantine, Byzantine Eurocrat and Euroglark of the European Commission. And, of course, you look at my website, you can see that there are important moves in the European bureaucracy to impose a Tobin tax and to regulate hedge funds. Both the Parliament and the finance ministers want to regulate hedge funds. But the time scale involved is forever at a snail's pace. So the Germans needed to act, and they acted quickly, and they were right to do it. Back in a minute.